All right, so this Knife Thoughts video is going to be on this knife, and this is the Jack Wolf Knives Javelina Jack. And this is the newest release from Jack Wolf Knives. It is dropping on Friday, February 17th, 2023. And as always, I want to, say a huge thank you to Ben for sending this knife for review. I always really love getting to check these out, and I hope you'll enjoy the video also. So let's get right into it here. And as usual, I am going to talk first about the pattern. So what is the Javelina Jack? Well, it's what I would consider a Sowbelly Jack. And so what is a Sowbelly? Well, a Sowbelly is really defined by this handle shape, which is a serpentine pattern that has just kind of been emphasized. So a little bit more of a curve in this main area here, and a little bit wider. But, if you're not familiar with a serpentine jack, what is that? Well, here is an example from Great Eastern Cutlery. This is the, wrong blade. This is the number 82 possum skinner. They've done other versions of this particular frame, but this is a pretty classic serpentine jack. So you can see it still kind of has that same S-type curve to the handle shape, but this serpentine jack is a little thinner and has a little bit less, emphasized a curve in this main curve area here. So if you take that serpentine and just make it a little more curvy and a little thicker, this is what you get. And this is a Sowbelly jack. Now, it's a pattern that has been around for a while. I was able to find, old catalogs back to at least 1910 that show what I would consider to be a Sowbelly jack. But as usual with these patterns, that name really didn't come into use until relatively recently, the late 20th century, probably even, close to the 21st century. And the reason for that is because the companies in, the late 19th century, early 20th century would just call this whatever type of knife it was. So this is a single blade, but a lot of Sowbellys have been multi-bladed knives. So if it had 3 blades, a clip point, a sheep foot, and a spay blade, then it would probably just be called a stock knife, or sometimes a serpentine stock knife. If it had 2 blades, a clip point or a spear, and a sheep foot, and then a punch or awl, then it would be called a cattle knife. There are definitely also jack versions with just a blade or 2 blades, a main blade and a pen blade. And then there's also, kind of some moose versions of the Sowbelly where there are 2 main blades, 2 full-size blades, but on either ends. So there's a lot of different variations that have been made and, pretty far back, but at that time they just didn't use that term Sowbelly. If anything, they would call it a serpentine jack. So this differentiation of a Sowbelly as a different pattern than a serpentine jack is relatively recent. I know Case has been calling this type pattern a Sowbelly jack for at least, several years. So it's something that probably, like a lot of these, collector or marketing names, came about in the late 20th century. But I do think that it's pretty recognizable versus a serpentine jack. And it's something where a lot of people were interested in this Sowbelly because Great Eastern Cutlery hadn't made one. So I want to show you an example of a traditional Sowbelly. I don't have a lot of Sowbelly pattern knives. I did have some Rough Riders in a Sowbelly pattern, which were actually 5-bladed knives, I believe. But this is Great Eastern Cutlery's recent rendition of the Sowbelly. You can see, as compared to the 82, this 88 pattern is thicker and has more of a curve, just like, a Sowbelly should. But this is a 2-bladed knife. This is the Allegheny Mountain Knife Collectors Association Club knife from 2022. I thought this was 2021, but from 2022. And you can see that it has what I would consider a Turkish clip point, and then it has actually a lamb foot type blade. So this is the 40th anniversary knife for the AMKCA. But I want you to get a look at these 2 knives here compared. So they're very similar. You can see that they both have green handles. I ended up getting the green version of the Javelina jack. They both have similar clip points in that they are what I would consider Turkish clip points, and they have similar handle shapes. Now, the Javelina jack has an interesting kind of flat face here on the bolster, and then a curve towards the blade well side, and then just a normal curved end here. And you can see it's also a single bolster versus a double bolster. So there are some differences, but I think if you're familiar with this 88 pattern from Great Eastern Cutlery, you know, the Javelina jack will seem similar. It's a little smaller, as you can see, in length, but definitely a similar knife. So that is what a Sowbelly is, and this is a Sowbelly jack because it is just a single bladed knife. So let's move on to the knife itself. Now, if you've been watching my videos on Jack Wolf knives, you know that they are made very well. So I did do an unboxing of this, and if you're interested in the extras that come with this knife, like the tube, which has beautiful artwork on it, and there's a cleaning cloth and a leather slip and a pog. So if you're interested in that stuff, definitely go check out my unboxing. But these knives are made really well. It's just something I've come to expect. I've gotten to check out all of the models that Jack Wolf Knives has done so far, and really, they have all been really, really well made. The Little Bro Jack had some blade wrap, but Ben basically recalled them and is going to release them later once that's fixed. So they are pretty superb and honestly pretty impeccable. So I want to show you here this back spring. You can see there's no gaps there, just amazing. It is perfectly flush in the closed position, perfectly flush in the half stop position, and perfectly flush in the full open position. Now, one thing in my unboxing, I really was enjoying the sound of this knife, and man, that has continued. The action on this is incredible. It's about the same pull-wise as the other knives from Jack Wolf Knives, but I have to be honest, I think it has some of the best just walk and talk, just feel and sound of any of these Jack Wolf knives. So I'm not sure exactly why that is, but you can listen to that there and judge for yourself. But I really think this has beautiful, beautiful action. And as always, the blade is perfectly centered. This knife, I was not sure if it would be pinchable because the blade does sit pretty low in the frame, but that's pretty much always how I opened it. It is definitely pinchable. And of course, no blade play. And it actually sits nice and low in the frame. The tip sits nice and low in that frame, so you're not gonna have to worry about a proud tip. And I have no blade wrap at all. So this knife is basically perfectly made. Now you can see there's scratches on here because I carried it without the slip, to be honest. You could carry this with the slip and it would stay pretty much, in perfect shape. Now, as I mentioned, I got the green shred carbon fiber, fat carbon, and boy, it has a lot of green in it. Now, I didn't oil it before this video, but if you put a little oil, I use mineral oil, and if you put a little oil on this, it really pops. But there is a lot of color in there, a lot of that green, and it's really cool. And honestly, it's nice to have the kind of modern versus traditional comparison of this green shred carbon fiber versus the green jigged of the 88 that I have there. Now, another thing you might notice is that this, like the most recent before this Jack Wolf Knives model, the low drag jack, is S90V. The previous models before the low drag jack were all M390. Ben has said that for the foreseeable future, they will be S90V. And I'm happy about that because I haven't, before these knives, gotten to try S90V very much, and I think for a slip joint, it's a great choice. It's a blade steel that is supposed to be very, very wear resistant, not the most tough, blade steel, so you might not use it for a bushcraft fixed blade or something like that, But on a slip joint where you're going to be doing, slicing, cutting, you're not, hopefully, I hope you don't, pry with these Jack Wolf knives or anything like that. I think that S90V is a great choice. I did get to use it a little bit more on this knife than I did on the low drag jack for cardboard cutting, and it did really well. I do feel, and I'm not a knife tester, there's a lot of people that do blade steel testing and things like that. That's not my thing. But I did feel just from using it that the S90V held an edge better than the M390 did on the previous models. So I think that's a good choice. And it's just a really well-made knife. These are not inexpensive knives at all. They are expensive, but you're getting really high quality. I feel like I didn't talk about this blade enough, and I do want to talk about it here. I think that this is a beautifully designed blade. Certainly it works great for cutting. There's no question of that. They're ground really thinly, has a great hollow grind, but it's also just a really good looking blade. I mean, you can see that drawn swedge there, shining. It has just a great look to it with this upturned clip point that makes it a really long, what I would call a Turkish style, or maybe an upswept clip point. So I really like the look of that blade, and I think that it fits this handle shape really well. Now I want to give you a couple size comparisons real quick here. I already showed you the GEC 88, but here is the low drag jack, which is the most recent Jack Wolf knife, so maybe the one you're most familiar with. And you can see that they're very similar in size, I would say, because of the handle shape of the Javelina jack. The handle does end up, being a little bit longer overall. The blade lengths, the edge lengths are pretty similar, but very similar overall. And then here is what I consider to be the biggest of the Jack Wolf knives, which is the Benny's clip. And you can see that it's definitely bigger. Again, with that curved handle on the Javelina jack, it still is, close to the length of the handle of the Benny's clip, but you can see that the blade on the Benny's clip is a good bit bigger. So the Javelina jack is a great size for carry. I found that for sure in my use and carry. It's easy to drop in your pocket. I mean, like I said, I did it without the slip, but I think it's a good idea to do it with the slip. And carry it. I carry in my back right pocket normally. Let me give you one more comparison since I have it sitting here. Here is a gradation cutlery number 15, a knife that a lot of people are probably familiar with size-wise. You can see that the Javelina jack is definitely a little longer, but very good, medium to larger size slip joint, not a massive slip joint. So I have really enjoyed this. I think that this is a very sleek knife. I would consider this with this nice curve, the beautiful curve to the clip point, how they kind of mirror and complement each other. I think Ben did a really good job on bringing this Sowbelly pattern to a modern slip joint. It's very traditional still. I mean, if this had different handle material and pins instead of screws, it would look just like a traditional, Sowbelly jack. But just tweaked a little bit to be modern and, very cool, like all of the other Jack Wolf knives. I really appreciate that. I love that Ben is bringing these old patterns into the modern era and really, getting people interested in them. So I have really loved this knife. I think it's a great addition to the Jack Wolf knives lineup. Love the action. I think you're going to, be really happy with the action on this knife. And I think it's a great user. Of course, like I said, these are not inexpensive knives, but if you're going to get a Jack Wolf knives to be a user, I think this is definitely a good option. One of the better options. So I have really enjoyed this knife. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and select all so you know when I post new videos. Go check out my social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Knife Thoughts, and my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and knife-related topics. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.